Gold, a word that alone carries a heavy meaning. No matter where you are in the world, no matter what language you speak, when people hear gold, something almost instinctive happens. Eyes brighten, attention sharpens, a sense of value, mystery, and power quietly emerges. But gold was not always jewelry, money, or investment charts. Once, it was just a bright metal found in rivers and rocks, waiting for humanity to notice it. And when humans finally did notice it, everything changed. This is the story of gold, not just as a metal, but as a companion of human civilization, a silent witness to the rise and fall of empires, to wars fought, dreams built, and futures shaped. Let's begin at the very beginning. Humanity's first encounter with gold was most likely completely accidental. There was no discovery plan, no understanding of its value, and no economic system to define it. Only nature existed, and within that nature were small, glowing particles. People walking along riverbeds or digging through stones would occasionally come across this yellow shimmer. It didn't behave like other stones. It didn't rust like iron or darken like copper. It didn't change over time. It simply remained, bright, untouched, almost eternal. For early humans, gold was just a strange and beautiful object. But the human mind does not treat different things lightly. What stands out eventually gains attention, and what gains attention eventually gains meaning. Gold followed exactly this path. At first, it was used for decoration. Small pieces were shaped into ornaments. But even this early use already showed something important. People do not preserve or decorate ordinary things. Gold was being kept, not discarded. As time passed, societies grew, villages turned into cities, and trade began to develop. People started exchanging goods not only for survival, but for convenience and specialization. And in this growing complexity, the limitations of simple barter became clear. Not every exchange was fair or even possible. A universal measure of value was needed. Gold slowly began to fill this gap, not because it was officially chosen, but because it naturally fit the requirements. It was rare, durable, divisible, and universally recognizable. Across different early civilizations, people independently began to accept gold as something valuable. Ancient Egypt played a particularly important role in this transformation. Gold was not just a material there. It was symbolic, almost cosmic. Pharaohs were buried with golden masks and ornaments because gold was believed to represent eternity and divine power. It was associated with the sun god Ra, making it a sacred substance rather than just a valuable one. At this stage, gold was still not money. But something crucial had already happened. Humans had collectively agreed that gold had value. And that agreement was the foundation of everything that followed. As trade networks expanded, barter systems became increasingly inefficient. People needed a shared measure of value. Gold gradually began to be used in exchange systems across Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and Egypt, although not in a standardized form. It was still irregular, local, and inconsistent. The real turning point came with the Kingdom of Lydia. Around 600 BCE, in what is now modern-day Turkey, the Lydians produced the first standardized coins made from gold and electrum. This was not just a technical innovation. It was a historical breakthrough. For the first time, value became portable, measurable, and guaranteed by a state. Gold coins changed the nature of trust. People no longer had to evaluate the worth of goods themselves. Instead, they trusted the gold that represented that value. This shift laid the foundation for large-scale economic systems. After Lydia, the idea spread quickly. The Persian Empire adopted and expanded it. The Greeks refined it, and the Roman Empire turned it into a global system. Under Rome, gold coins became one of the most powerful tools of administration and trade. The empire's vast territory could function economically because gold provided a shared language of value. But gold has a limitation that history repeatedly reveals. It does not create wealth, it only represents it. Gold can transfer value, but it cannot generate it on its own. This distinction would become increasingly important over time. After the fall of Rome, during the Middle Ages, gold took on a different role. It was no longer primarily an economic tool, but a symbol of political and religious authority. Kings wore golden crowns, churches were decorated with gold, and power itself became something visible. In a world where literacy was limited and institutions were fragile, visual symbols carried enormous weight. Gold became one of the strongest symbols of legitimacy. During this period, gold was also scarce. Large-scale mining was limited, and extraction was difficult. This scarcity made gold even more valuable, not just economically but symbolically. The rarer something becomes, the more meaning humans attach to it. In the Islamic world, gold played a more structured economic role. Across vast trade networks stretching from Africa to Asia and Europe, gold served as a reliable medium of exchange. It functioned as a universal trade language in a fragmented world of cultures and economies. Then came the age of exploration in the 15th and 16th centuries, and gold once again moved to the center of global history. European explorers traveled across oceans, driven in part by the search for wealth. The discovery of the Americas brought enormous amounts of gold into Europe. Civilizations such as the Aztecs and Incas possessed vast quantities of it, although they used gold primarily for cultural and religious purposes rather than as currency. For Europeans, however, gold was direct power. This difference in perspective reshaped global history. The massive flow of gold into Europe altered economic systems, shifted power balances, and contributed to the rise of colonial empires. By the 19th century, gold had become something more personal. The gold rush periods in California, Australia, and South Africa turned gold into a symbol of individual transformation. Thousands of people migrated in search of sudden wealth. Some succeeded, many failed, but the idea remained powerful. Gold represented the possibility of life-changing opportunity. This period revealed something important about human psychology. Gold was not valued only for what it was, but for what it represented: hope, transformation, and possibility. In the 20th century, global economic systems became more structured, and the gold standard emerged. Under this system, national currencies were directly tied to gold reserves. It created stability but also imposed limitations, since money supply depended on physical gold availability. As economies expanded and became more complex, the system eventually became unsustainable and was gradually abandoned. With the Bretton Woods system and later modern financial frameworks, gold was no longer direct money. But it did not disappear. Instead, its role changed once again. It became a background pillar of trust within the global financial system. Today, gold still sits in central bank vaults and remains one of the most important reserve assets in the world. Investors still turn to it during times of uncertainty because it has repeatedly proven its ability to preserve value across centuries. But perhaps the most interesting thing about gold is this: physically, it has never changed. What has changed is the meaning humans assign to it. From a shiny river object to a sacred material, from currency to imperial power, and from financial backbone to psychological safety net, gold has continuously adapted without ever changing its nature. Gold did not evolve. Humanity did. And perhaps that is why its story is not finished. Because as long as humans continue to search for value, stability, and meaning, gold will always find a place somewhere in that search. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. See you in the next one.